Hello everyone and welcome back. This is Writing a Programming Language in Rust. It's been a minute since I've streamed last, so just to catch up, still on the cusp of finishing the current project, which is essentially a research language with a C-style syntax. The aim is to develop it as essentially a test bed for different language features and ideas. And this is going to be, this one's called Seed, but it's going to be used as the basis for a follow-on, more targeted language called Ash, at least provisionally called Ash, which aims to be a Bash alternative, essentially, with a more, typical or standard feeling syntax compared to a lot of shell scripting languages, and still trying to keep the ergonomics of Bash within that. The environment that I'm developing all this in is, it's run in a remote host running Debian. I think, it's not Ubuntu. And I use Mosh to maintain a stable connection to the environment. I split it up using tmux. I use entr on the right to rebuild and rerun tests whenever either of those things change, whenever the source of the project changes or the tests change. I use Vim here on the left, with basically the only plugin I use is Nerdtree, just for file system navigation. And then on the bottom left, I use just regular Bash. So that's the setup here. And where we're at in terms of development, I was just opening this a few minutes ago actually, is kind of coming to the end of development of Seed. So there are maybe three main things that I want to get done. So there's interpolated strings, which essentially got completed in the last stream, and it's just a matter of tidying that up and actually committing it now. And to a certain extent, that's the last main feature that I want to get done. I also want to take a look at operator assignment, which opened a whole can of worms with regards to how assignment is actually performed in this language, where I recognized that, at least in theory, it seems that the way I'm handling assignment at the moment is that when we have a box, and I'm not using the Rust idea of a box, even though that's probably suitable in this case, but where we have a memory space represented by a variable. At the moment, I believe what I'm doing is whenever I am updating the value in that memory space, in that box, I'm actually replacing the entire box as opposed to just the value that's in it. And so that, at least the idea that might be what's happening at the moment, kind of came to mind when I was looking into operator assignments. So that might be something that I update before I consider the C language more or less feature complete. And if that works the way I expect it, I should be able to implement operator assignment, because otherwise it's a bit, surprisingly, a bit of a headache to implement with the approach that's there now. It isn't as simple as just performing the operand or the operator and the assignment in sequence, because the left-hand side of the equation could, if it performs side effects, then performing those operations sequentially could result in the side effect being evaluated twice, which isn't what you want, or at the very least isn't what I want. And also, based on what I've seen in other languages when I've tested this, isn't what other languages do either. So they kind of handle it as you might expect. where the left-hand side is just evaluated once using the operation, and then the assignment is made directly into that item. So that could be provisionally the second thing that would be nice to get done to consider this language complete. So the last two that I'm kind of on the fence with are, number one, error handling, which to a certain extent I feel like leaving unspecified in this language. So it's kind of a case you can roll your own error handling to a certain extent. So you could do it C style, where you just return error numbers, and you could also implement it using values, error objects, things like that. But there won't be any built-in, for example, try-catch mechanisms or things like that. That's something that I would be hoping to add into the Ash language, is support for a somewhat more streamlined try-catch mechanism. But in this one, it'll probably be unspecified. And then the last bit was Unicode escape sequences, which also I'm kind of on the fence about, because at the moment they can't be specified using, for example, there is support for hex escape sequences, for example, but you can't create a UTF-8 character using a sequence of hex characters. I can't remember why exactly I didn't implement this. I could go back and watch it, which is kind of the nice thing about all of this being video documented. But at the same time, I think it was just one of those features that could have been implemented, but might have just been a bit more effort than I felt like putting into it compared to what I'd get out of it. Now, it is something that probably would be necessary for a production level language like Ash is intending, at least what I'm intending Ash to be. So maybe I will need to implement that. Like, if I'm going to implement it in one, I might as well put it into the base as well, but we'll see. For the moment anyway, the main thing to get finished off is the interpolated strings, and that will put us in a really nice position for finishing off this language, I think. And so I'll do a git diff just to see where we're at in terms of the implementation of this. So like I say, it's mostly just tidying up what's already there. Might need to add some documentation to the string type here because of interpolated ranges. I feel like it might not be so obvious what that's doing. In fact, like in looking at this, I have a vague idea of what's happening, but I can't be sure. So yeah, so there are some errors here that I need to add support for. Maybe let's go to, if we start at the end first, kind of with the lexer and parser. So we have the parser adds support for a range from the lexer. Whoops. And I think I implemented it, at least interpolated strings, in a fairly naive kind of way, but at the same time I feel like making it more complicated or abstracting it more just for the sake of simplifying a small bit of the code probably wouldn't be a great return on investment here. So we'll see. Is range a built-in in Rust? So yeah, it is a type. I wonder will Clippy give a warning for that? I could call it interp range. Yeah, I guess that'll be fine. Those errors seem fine. I exposed the scanner from the lexer, and I don't think that's what I want to do in the final version of this code. If I can avoid it at least. So we have next string literal. Yeah, that's a big and complicated implementation at this point. Yeah, I don't really like it, but it's also in a state where, again, if I add much more abstraction, it might not get that much of a benefit. How big is the function? 125 lines, and these lines are going to, yeah, I'm going to on it. Yeah, those will be present as well, actually, because they're for handling different state at the end of the parsing. So I'll want to keep those. Yeah, it's a tricky one. Yeah, I think I will just leave it as is. It's a little difficult to, I guess, manually parse from a code reading perspective, but at the same time, it's kind of fine. It's a little more complicated than you would want, but is kind of in that halfway house that I feel like the return on investment of trying to tidy it up, you could end up making it a lot more complicated. So yeah, I think like it's fine the way it is. I don't think it's ideal, but it's functional and it is understandable, I think. So just catching up on some of these comments as well. Okay, and this is, yeah, so braces are kind of, oh, and that was something that did I flag? Oh no, the comment, the issue that this comment is highlighting is something that I recognized last time. And other than that, I think that was the main issue with this approach. Are all those errors correct? So if I'm matching the state at the end of string interpolation, if I end up with an escape code, no, I think that's incorrect. I need to add some new errors. Now for escape for escape sequences, I could also return the substring of characters that were parsed for it. Or sorry, not for escape sequences, for hex and interpolated sequences. And that would provide a little more information for the error, but I don't think that's really... I'm gonna leave it out for now because I don't think there's a huge benefit to it, and it's something that can be added back in later easily enough. And that's more or less it. I'll have to add a bunch of error tests for these new error variants, but current location doesn't exist. Do I really need the current location in the error variant, because it'll be the last? Yeah, I'll just go with that for now. Just wondering where... Oh yeah. So this is something that isn't handled yet, is distinguishing between an interpolated string literal versus a regular one. How do I detect the end of a string? I'm not quite sure because, okay, so it's in when we're not matching anything special. If we read a double quote, then we end the parsing there. Now, usually I prefer to have enums instead of booleans when I'm passing parameters to functions, and that's usually a somewhat rule of mine. But in this context, looking at it a bit pragmatically, this is going to be the only real call to this function, and the variable name very clearly indicates what the value of the item is doing. So I don't think we'd actually gain much from turning this into an enum. In fact, it would possibly just add more code for not much benefit. And it's a bit similar to the way I think about string literals sometimes. I mean, it is a best practice clean coding principle to, for example, not have magic constants in general. And there can be a lot of I think as a general rule, especially for non-strings, I think it can be very useful, especially when you're dealing with like third-party libraries where they use error numbers and things like that, or special status codes. It can be handy as a translation to the reader of the code that, okay, this message that we're using from a third-party library, that's what this means in our local parlance, I guess, for lack of a better word. Whereas when you have a string literal that very clearly is self-descriptive, so for example, status okay, and the string is just okay, I feel like sometimes instead of creating a new constant string being like status is okay equals okay, and then in your comparison you're doing if status is equal to status okay, and really it would be just as descriptive to say if status is equal to quote unquote okay. But that's, yeah, a little aside. By default though, sometimes those pragmatic considerations are ones that require a little more experience as well. So even as a blanket best practice approach, it probably is better to just be like, okay, you know, if you're designing a linter, imposing a linter on a code base and setting up a policy around that, it's probably easier to just say, okay, you just use constants instead of magic literals. But yeah, when you've time to think about the problem and tease these things out, sometimes those are the kind of streams of thought you can get yourself stuck in. But suffice to say, we'll go with the Boolean approach for now. So that's that. And so we also have still one reference to range. Oh, that's because we haven't defined so we'll do that. And I think the lexer and parser by that point are more or less done. So like I said, we'll have a few more. What's index? I think I'll need to rename that. That's something to be removed. I think it was just some debugging symbols. And yeah, I'll add some lexer tests next, I think. Well, first I'll make index a bit more descriptive because it only relates to interpolation, I believe. Although should I do an enumerate? No, I don't think so. It wouldn't really work in this context just because of the way I structured the while loop. Let's see. So let's see what are our new errors. So if we don't complete the hex character, it will be interesting to see what it does if I don't return an error for incomplete hex codes. I think it just won't add that character to the end of the string, so that's not too interesting. So first we'll have That's what happens when there's a string that isn't a, what's it called, interpolation string. And I'll need to add handling in main for these as well. That's that. Unescaped dollar. Not sure how to keep the message of that short. We'll come back to it. Invalid or interpolation start, I guess that means. Like that. And what are the other messages that we have? So we've unescaped dollar, we've invalid interpolation start, and the new incomplete ones. Now, whether to call it an interpolation block or an interpolation directive. placeholder. Substitution, not really sure. Anyway, we'll keep plowing ahead. I'll just call it sequence for the moment, be fine. So we had invalid interpolation start. So these are all new pieces. I'll bunch them all together. Did I define that above? No. I'll put it with the interpolation stuff, or the escape stuff. Same for hex. I think I may have mixed something up there. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's gonna be a long compile. I kind of want to just remove the public annotation from the scanner as well, just to see what will happen. But I guess I'll get to that point when I get there. And I forgot that I am only running some of the tests, so let's see. Run tests that contain the word lex. Okay, so we're getting a lot of lexing issues, not just with the ones that I've added. Yeah, I think these are just adding lots of new cases to the existing lex issues. Although, yeah, I guess it's, yeah, unexpected EOF, is it? Incomplete. Not sure. Some of those errors aren't what I was expecting. But it is kind of correct. Because that inner loop on the lexer will keep going until it hits the end of the string. So if I keep attempting to match one of these, eventually what's going to happen is this will return none. And then, yeah, the state should then be the error that gets returned. Yeah, realistically, those should return the more specific errors and not the general EOF error. I think. At least that one's correct. Not a valid escape character. I think that's just the column. And then for that one, Yeah, I guess you can't really encounter hex sequence isn't complete unless you have an EOF. Let's try those two updates then. Just phrase it like that for the moment. What are those linting errors, or warnings rather? Okay, so some of these new errors, I guess I will just hide them for the time being and come back to them later. So that's incomplete escape sequence, invalid interpolation, start. I'm not sure why that one's giving an issue. Oh, it's actually panicking? No. Oh no, it's an EOF issue. Yeah, I guess I'll remove that for the time being. Now the others shouldn't be giving those errors, so something that changed in the lexer is now causing these. Okay, so dollar is now allowed, so maybe let's put in another character that isn't allowed anymore. Okay, so that seems to be all the tests passing again. So if I dive into, let's see, yeah, all the main stuff is done now, so I just need to jump into mod, I think, the eval mod. So lexer, and we have the expression parser as well. So those are necessary to parse sub expressions, I believe, but we'll see. I might just save a backup of this branch. By cancelling the build, it didn't release the lock. Oh well, that's alright for the moment. I'll just keep firing on. not very descriptive. Hi Razor Gods, welcome to the channel. So I'm just thinking, yeah, I think I'll, optimize this later. I have a feeling life times could mess me up with trying to optimize that too early. So maybe we'll jump down here. That returns a string, but it should probably return an error at some point as well. So yeah, we've got the parser here, and then we'll have the result, which is a vector of substrings for each sequence of non-interpolated block and then interpolated block all added together. And yeah, I'll need to enumerate the states as well. So that looks fine, even though it's a little, I don't know, a little terse. Let's see, current range. Actually, I'm not really tracking state anymore, so that should be fine to remove. Why am I joining it with a pipe? Was that just for the sake of debugging, I think? Oh, thanks for the question. So this language is called Seed. I think there's a link to it in the sidebar of the channel. And yeah, that's the one I'm currently working on, but it's mostly research based. And I'm hoping to, this is kind of one of the last features of it actually. And I'm hoping to follow on with a language that's provisionally called Ash that aims to be an alternative to Bash scripts. So thanks for the question. So we've got return. So now we'll promote these panics to proper errors. So let's see, this one will be just parse failed, I guess. And that will be a, maybe I will put it down with the rest of these other kind of failures. And that will be, I don't need to provide a source, do I? Oh, maybe I do, I think in this case. Or I can probably, yeah, do a, what's it called? A snafu context. So that should be fine. Does it go like that? It's been a while since I've looked at this project, so I'm not actually quite sure. So let's try that. Okay, well, I'm going to undo some of this just to see what used to be here. Use the current range 0. So why is that? Oh, because I need to dereference that as well, I guess. Oh yeah, that's just... That should be alright for that. Oh, okay, so the error that I'm including here isn't the correct type. That should be fine. I can replace that shortly. This one should be more straightforward. So we can do interpolate string. Let's see. String, what's it called? Not parse. Eval expression. Failed. And then that is, I think there should be other code for that. Getting a from UTF-8. Eval expression to string. Is there something in value maybe that does something similar? No, so it doesn't really handle the same use case, so I guess I'll need to define this separately. So that would be a weird one. I don't think that's a case that can actually occur. Oh wait, no, it is. If the... So at the moment, the interpolated ranges can only be strings. So if any of them aren't strings, then this... error will be thrown. That would be that. Cool. So we're basically down to the last issue, I think. And that's just that should be a parse error. Although that could be tricky to handle. I'm not sure. We shall see. Will this get us over? Not quite. Trace clone isn't implemented. Guess what I could do in the short term is just have a string description of the error, which isn't great, but it'll do for the moment. Yeah, not a great solution, just putting the debug value of the source error, but should be fine for the short term. And all the tests are passing, so that at least bodes well. So let's see what else is there left to do. So clean up some of those debugging bits. What I'll do is, I suppose I will add some more tests and then come back to the errors, because I have a few of them to clean up. I'm not sure if I'll be able to actually create tests for all of them, even though I should be able to, but it could take a bit of debugging time to actually figure out why I'm getting EOF errors instead of the lexing errors that I'm expecting. So I think it was strings was going to have the new interpolation stuff. So let's see, we'll have interpolation 1. Yeah, I can't remember if I can nest strings in this actually. I think I can though, even though I don't like it. Oh, I don't have good support for string manipulation in this language, so maybe we'll do something simpler. Let's try something like that. Fairly simple tests. Oh, I need to actually run all of them. Okay, so we have a lot of new errors. Well, I'm going to take a quick break and then we'll dive into those. Cool. So we have a bunch of new failing tests now. So let's take a look at what that could be. So a couple of these are for the new interpolation tests. So okay, so these are somewhat predictable ones. So I just hadn't been actually interpolating these strings properly. So let's go ahead and do that. I think this is one of the first times I've actually seen this interpolation syntax with the kind of dollar comma approach actually written out, and I'm not sure I love it. I mean, again, it's fine, but I possibly could have tried that out a bit and played around with it a bit more before committing to it, but however, not such a big deal anyway, I don't think. Now, in this case, we have fname and separator and lname, but lname is unexpected. Can I actually do plus plus in this language yet? Let's take a look. Oh yeah, I do. I have precedence down there, I think. But let's just double check. Because I'm not really sure why else lname wouldn't be accepted. Okay, still have the same issue. Fname plus separate. Oh, that's okay. Just an ID10T error. So let's see, escape quote. So we have a bunch of strings issues. Okay, did I change how these ones get interpreted? I'm not sure. Okay, so that's a more straightforward one for the parse errors. So that's just adding this newly supported token. For this, so escape hex 1, it seems to be including the backslash, which shouldn't be happening. So let's go ahead and take a look at the lexer again. Yeah, so if it's a backslash, then we essentially skip the backslash. Not sure why it's getting included in the output. That is puzzling. It's doing it with a bunch of strings. So if I output an example string, it's gonna quote the open double quotes, it's gonna escape the substring, and then it's going to, I'm not following why those are getting added at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a git diff and just see if there's somewhere that I'm just adding that character. Could it be this spot? That's my best guess anyway. String scan state escape. Although no, because that's if the item has actually been escaped. That's kind of confusing. I would have kind of expected more tests to be failing if it's as something as, like, it seems to be adding these backslashes all over the place. But it's only with the escapes, except for that one string. Although that one's using escapes as well, I guess. Let me just remove that, just randomly. Because I don't really have a good handle on what else it could be at this point. No, same issue. I mean, that's good because that was a bit of a guess, but still. Might have to add some print line stuff. So we'll go escape hex 1. Or we'll just do the escape test. So by the time we get to here, the backslash has already been added, so that does kind of help things in terms of narrowing down where this issue is coming from. So let's go ahead and just add in some debugging prompts. Hey, welcome back, Furnace Sigma. So let's see, we'll just do a bit of not scattergun, because we are kind of targeting some specific code paths here, but we'll get a general idea of what's getting executed when these outputs are being generated. Okay, so this is probably a good one to start off with, the ABC one. So with that, we're coming into here. It's not executing one of those on A and on the letter A, so it's probably doing a push here. Then we are getting a backslash, so we're printing 1 and then 2, and then we go into section 4, and then it goes into section 6 because it is a hex character, and then it goes into 6 again. So let's go ahead and print out characters at each stage. Yeah, so the language itself is an interpreter. On the right hand side though, is I'm just rerunning tests, and at the moment I just have a liberal use of print lines in the output, so it might look like a REPL or something, but it's just an ENTR script. But the language itself is an interpreter. Though it is a goal for the language to eventually have a REPL style prompt. Amongst other things, I mean, the list of features that I'm hoping to add to this are frankly impractical, but I think that's some of the fun of writing a language anyway. So I can't really output chairs because of lifetimes and the fact that I'd have to, well, I could actually potentially by, oh yeah, doing it like this. Because it's just a vector of characters. Oh yeah, that was a while ago. And yeah, it's certainly come a long way since then. And luckily with a lot more tests this time around. So it's fairly comprehensive in both the features and testing department at this point, which is nice. But yeah, it's kind of on the cusp of being feature complete in terms of where this part of the language is going or where this part of the project is going. The next phase of doing a more production, I guess, level language is coming up shortly, I hope. Just kind of one or two features left to do in the meantime. Okay, so we have, when we add B, yeah, that makes sense that the backslash has been added by this point. Are there any other, so we go into section 4. Are there any other spots where I could be adding stuff? So it's going into 6 twice. Let's try this. These debugging, I think it's generous to call them debugging symbols, but yeah, these debugging outputs are getting fairly messy, but they're fit for purpose. So let's see. Okay, so actually once I've output A, by the time I get into 4, then I've already added a backslash. So it could be in 2 or 1. That I'm adding this stuff. So we get 1 and then we get 6. That outputs A, and that's our first iteration through the loop. Then we go into 1 again, and then we go into 2. And then by the time we hit 5, there's still only 1 character there. But hang on, how? Oh my god. Okay, that's not on me, I like to think. I mean, it clearly is, but I mean, that's pretty subtle. I mean, how many other places am I do? Okay, that's kind of blown my mind a little bit. I guess, yeah, I guess that's something that can just happen in regular languages. If I think about it, does Go do that as well? Have I been to? No, I can't. I cannot think of another time that I've encountered a bug like that. I mean, that's clearly my own fault, but at the same time, yeah, I guess a linter would catch that. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. But even, yeah, I guess if it's like a straightforward language server protocol, it'll still probably, like, that's still valid code. You know, I think it would take a linter or something that actually flags code that you wouldn't expect to work, or yeah, that would flag stuff that isn't best practices. Okay, so let's see if let's see x is equal to 1, if x is equal to 2, and then if x is equal to Rust analyzer would, and also cargo clippy. Yeah, that's a good point. I run those after I run tests. I guess I should run those analyzers before I run tests. I don't know. So let's try this. Let's see what Go has to say about something like this. Yeah, it says unexpected if. Now, I'm not sure if that's because of, like, Go has the special, I guess, lexing rules for omitting semicolons, and I'm guessing that's what causes that to get caught. I'm on regular Vim. Yeah. I'm very... yeah, I hesitate to say old school. I would say I'm just lazy. But yeah, I'm on regular Vim at the moment. But I'm curious to see... Let's see... test.py x is equal to 1 if x is equal to 1 print 1. Oh yeah, because you can't, yeah, Python doesn't even have brackets like that. Do I have Node installed? No. But regardless, Go doesn't do that. But even though it does catch that kind of error as part of the actual language and compiling step, I mean, it's been a lot. I can't remember ever having made a mistake like that before. That's so fun. Even though it seems like such an easy one to make. For me anyway, if someone like me. Press escape to move out the editor. Not sure what that does. That's interesting. But yeah, exactly. So there's no chance of making that kind of mistake with Python, at least. But however, that was interesting. Neat little... At least it got resolved easily enough. I was afraid that I'd have to do a whole load of refactoring or something like that to fix this. So okay, so that's all those working, and I have 2 files that I need to sort out the line lengths on. So we've this one, and then in the lexer. Just do, yeah. Try that. Nice. Okay, all passing now, finally. That was a while in the making, but having said that, there are a few bits of housekeeping to sort out still before I can really sign off on this one. So those new tests are fine, but for the error tests, I either want to, or for the new errors that I've added, I either want to add extra tests for them or else remove the errors. And my Vim setting, yeah, it's public. It's a bit bare bones, but let's see. I think is it dot files. And yeah, vimrc. I mean, it's probably not totally up to date. I could probably do with updating it with some of my latest changes. I think I've only changed it most recently in the last year or two. Before that, it's probably been many years. I'd say most of the time when I'm updating it, actually, I'm just adding new language preferences for like tab settings and things like that. I think it's fairly bare bones. But yeah, that's kind of what I say to any of my colleagues that I'm talking to about this stuff as well. Anyway, I'm generally at the point where I just don't like configuring stuff anymore. So I basically just auto CMD, exactly. So I basically just do the absolute minimum I can to make my environment functional, and then I just start coding and I completely forget about configuration and stuff like that. I've actually learned loads of, what's it called? I guess I feel like they're kind of less known Vim features just because I couldn't be bothered getting better quality of life plugins and things like that. This to me is kind of like one of my favorite configurations, though, the no remap of JK to escape, just to get into insert mode a little bit quicker even. And these, I'm quite proud of these ones. These are kind of relatively personal ones. Like, they're not ones that I've seen in other configurations, but just for manipulating windows and moving around windows, because I actually do that a lot. And having shortcuts for those, especially ones that aren't the default ones, I think I actually get a lot of productivity out of that, which is maybe a bit surprising, but yeah, it's so convenient. Oh yeah, like I would love that. I'd love to be able to just copy over configurations, but that's just how lazy I have gotten in terms of configuration. The idea of even doing a curl command to like, and finding the directory I have to put it in, it's like, already I'm like, couldn't be bothered. I'll just do an auto CMD. Yeah, please share if you have a handful of keybinds that you want to tell people about. But getting back to these errors. Which are the new ones? So I have some failed errors that I need to add handling for in particular. Yeah, so these are, let's see, interpolate string failed, and then eval expression failed, and those are the two failure ones that I needed to add support for. Then we have interpolate range not string, and I do want to add support for, let's see, yeah, I want to add some new rendering for, although no, they have the display directive already in there, so I don't need to add any special handling. Okay, so we finally have some Clippy suggestions, and they probably would have flagged the else if issue, but they run after tests, so there you go. Oh, nice. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of the same with storing config. I think I have a script that just saves all of my dot files in one go, so it's kind of atomic. But yeah, that's nice. And I really need to spend more time with NeoVim. But yeah, like I say, I'm lazy. Well, lazy. I guess I get impatient when it comes to just diving into code. I don't know what that says about me, but it is what it is. So let's see. Oh yeah, we can remove that. This function has too many lines. Yeah, that can be said about a couple of functions in this project. So let's go ahead and just quieten it down a bit. Let's see, even though that is one that I was thinking would be good to trim down, but for the sake of completing this feature, I think I'll leave it for the moment. Oh yeah, semicolons. Thanks, I might take a look. So that's that, and yeah, so maybe it's time now to take a look at the new errors that I wasn't able to kind of force. So let's see, we'll go through them one at a time this time around. So we've lex errors. And let's see. Invalid escape character. Yeah, I'll build up a couple of scratch items about this as well. So let's go with that. not save? I thought I'd removed all of those. Oh no, I just had skipped those ones. Not really sure how to format this one. That's fine, I guess. Seed, yeah, thanks for the question. So the original name for this project was Laurel, and then I got into my head that it could be cool to have the languages that I'm developing, because there's also a language out there, Elm, and maybe a couple of other, I think another language that the language itself didn't inspire me, but the fact that someone did it as a project inspired me, and that I think was called Oak. And so there were a couple of tree themed languages out there that I thought Seed could be a nice one, because it touches on the idea that this is kind of a research language that that I would build other languages out of. And similarly, the language that I'll be mainly using this one for in future is called Ash, which is another tree where I'm from. And so, yeah, just that kind of theme for was kind of where that idea came from anyway. Maybe I'll format it like that. That's slightly better. Not sure. It's fine. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I am kind of pleased with it. I don't know. I mean, it's not particularly deep meaning, so to speak, but I'm kind of pleased with how it turned out. Found a semicolon, so should I just remove that comma, I guess? Okay, so let's see, unescaped dollar is being handled. Invalid escape character is being handled. Invalid interpolation start isn't being handled. And I also need to check whether some of these characters are using the extra parameters. Let's see. Okay, let's try that. actually make it an interpolated string. Yeah, and so similar to before, it's giving me that EOF issue, but this time I will actually dive into the nitty gritty of that and see what's actually going wrong. So yeah, even as I was doing it, I was like, that's not going to give me what I want to see. But at the same time, I can take a look at what so presumably we will have come from here. We'll go to, and this would essentially be the third hop in this sequence. And we'll take a look at what C is as well. Could just be an off by one issue as well, actually, now that I think of it. Yeah, I'd say that's probably all that is. Although, how would that be working in general? So we've got the starting index of the current interpolation equals index plus 1. When does index get initialized? Index is the index of the string in general, I think. So I think okay. So we set that to current interpolation start. That doesn't seem right. I'm not sure why I'm pushing C onto that at the moment. Am I using that later? No. I'll comment that out and see later if it causes any test failures. But anyway, when we get to current interpolation start, and then we go once through the loop, index will get bumped. So we actually want to have this plus 1 is equal to index, or rather index minus 1. Probably makes sense. And what else is index being used for? For the range. Oh yeah, when adding it to a string to keep track of the list of interpolation sections. Oh well, spent a lot more time debugging than I expected. But anyway, that I think resolves that issue at least. Let's try that. And that should be interpolated. I guess for the moment I'm calling them ranges, but I'm going to rename that. Oh, can I just do that? I'm not so smart. Because it's not in a format directive anymore. Cool, that's that one sorted. Okay, this is gonna look very messy, but let's see. Yeah, now I need to reintroduce that. Cool. So that's that one done. So let's try incomplete escape sequence. I'm just not sure where the end of file trigger is happening. like I feel like, okay, by that point peak character will return none, so we're not actually getting into here. Yeah, so none of those incomplete states will actually get triggered. So actually I'll just remove all of them. And add a comment to say why that is. Although, hang on. No, that's incorrect because it'll return none at that point, but then we will exit the loop and then we should be catching the error at this point then. Saying new line is not a valid hex character. I mean, true, but yeah, actually I can't really avoid that. Now I'm not really sure why that wasn't getting flagged previously. Because in theory, I guess when the test files are getting saved, they're getting saved with a Unix style line end character for the last line in the file. So then before EOF, it will parse a new line character, which isn't a valid character in a hex escape sequence. So because of that, we shouldn't have been, like, if that's going to be the case, we shouldn't really have been seeing EOF errors before. And we should have always been getting these new line is not a valid hex character errors. Anyway, let's consider what's the better approach here. Do I keep those errors knowing that I can't actually test for them? The only time I could imagine these actually getting triggered is, yeah, if the files are edited to specifically not end in a new line. Or I can't remember if Windows saves files with a trailing new line. I think they don't. But even so, that's such an edge case that I think I can be forgiven for leaving them out. Should I have a comment there to remind myself why I'm not checking the state at this point? Yeah, because that's the only way that we can reach this point, is if either the end of file got hit or we hit this break caused by parsing double quotes, but that can only happen in that state. If double quotes are encountered in any of the other states, it's going to cause a different error. So I don't think I really need to handle them. Cool, so that kind of... Okay, what's the issue here? I think that's just using an old version or something, in the sense of if I rebuild the project from scratch, or if I even just force the lexer file to be recompiled, that should resolve that issue. And let's see how we're looking in terms of the staging area. Yeah, I think the last thing that I want to do, so I might see, can I clean up this area a tiny bit? But other than that, I think the only thing that I want to do was what? I've lost my train of thought. I think the last thing that I wanted to do was to rename ranges to either substitutions or blocks or something. So I'll just add a note here. I guess blocks will... The only thing is blocks is kind of an overloaded term. Oh, did I? Maybe I undid the part where I removed those errors. Yeah, so... So yeah, that's looking in relatively good shape. I think that's the last bit to do before these get committed, or this change set gets committed. Realistically, I could probably do that now, but I don't think I'm going to do it now. I'm going to leave that till next time. And yeah, so that was another... Oh no, what's going wrong here? Couldn't parse interpolation range. Is this to do with the changing the index? Couldn't parse interpolation range, unrecognized token. Brace close. Expected a dot dot. That does look like an off by one error. That could be caused by... No, I'm not sure what would be causing that. Huh, what did I change that caused that issue? Well, that's where I want it to be. is it to do with the fact that I got rid of this characters push? I'm not sure. That looks like a problem for next time as well. Even though it's a bit of a hairy one to be getting stuck into at the start of a streaming session, but how's ever. Yeah, I need to leave this alone because this is verging too much on programming by coincidence, and I'm just messing around with like off by one errors, which isn't good. So I'm going to be leaving it there. That was relatively productive. I mean, it was mostly just cleaning up code for, I guess, most of which had been written in a previous session, but you know, that's necessary too. And at least it's getting very close to the point at which I can make this commit, and the tests are relatively solid as well. So yeah, I guess that's where I'll leave it today. So thanks to everyone who joined in and for watching and for asking questions as always. And yeah, hope to see you again. Take care.